I'm gonna call to order the Nottingham Planning Board meeting of Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. We'll go around the room and have everyone introduce themselves. We'll start on my right, Ms. Jones.
Sandra Jones, alternate.
Robert Davies, alternate.
Gary Anderson.
Ben Bartlett.
Ian McKinnon.
Edward Veal.
Susan Mooney.
Sherry Sandler.
All right, and before we jump into the public hearings, we're gonna do a little bit of housekeeping. It's, when we're looking back through records, we're trying to confirm dates of, for the alternates of when their appointments can come up. And we, for Mr. Davies, I found the 2017 appointment, which would have brought us through 2020. 2020 and 2021 were obviously COVID years, which things kind of got thrown around. So I could not find record of when he may have been reappointed. There's no votes that I could find on record where Mr. Davies was a deciding factor, but, so that's just to make that public. So the cleanest thing to do would be to renominate Mr. Davies to a term, a 3-year term, if he's so willing to be in one. That would make it clean. It is possible that he's nominated right now through 2023, but just to be on the safe side, I think it'd be cleaner to make sure it's documented in the minutes and the form is signed and brought into, filed with the town clerk to clean that up. So would anybody like to?
Mr. Chair, I nominate Robert Davies for an additional 3-year term. That's if he's willing to hang in there.
I'll second.
Do we really want to do a 3-year term, seeing as we have a new alternate that just signed up for a 3-year term?
Yeah, I was looking at that. So with our bylaws, it says 3-year terms, and to stagger them, but there's up to 5 positions. So I think that means the first 2 would have the same 3-year term. If we had 2 more alternates, they would go to a stagger.
Fine.
So I appreciate the comment. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. It's unanimous.
I'll have
That's
discussion
through
if I could.
2025, 3-year. And we'll take a sidebar for a moment until Mr. Bartlett, who's our Board of Selectmen ex officio representative, he can swear in Mr. Davies tonight, just to get that all taken care of if you guys.
Mr. Davies?
Where do you want to do this?
Right here? This will be seen on the camera, right? Yeah. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
Robert G. Davies Jr.
Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as an alternate member of the planning board.
I will.
I'm supposed to repeat after that, but okay. According to the best of my abilities, agreeable to the rules and regulations of the Constitution, laws and rules of the state of New Hampshire, so help me God.
So help me God.
You can sign here, Mr. Davies.
Mr. Chair, would be okay to make one comment?
Of course, yeah.
Just like to thank Robert for, well, knowing that, as a board member, and for myself, knowing that we can pretty much count on most of the time, so, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, Mr. Davies and our alternates are definitely invaluable to the board, based with the different experience and the consistency with which Mr. Davies is here, and the history with which he's aware of and brings to it. I'm grateful to have him on board with us again. And thank you both for doing that.
So, point of order, Ed, you haven't seated anybody for the meeting tonight.
Okay, correct.
We're still in.
Mr. Davies, were you so one of the cases before us tonight, or either of the cases before us, were you seated for either of those, you remember? I wasn't here for them.
I haven't seen the agenda. Do you have a copy of it here?
I will, I think you were seated last, so I'll seat Ms. Jones tonight in place of Ms. Anderson. So Ms. Jones will be seated in voting, participating in votes. Mr. Davies will not be seating, but will be participating in discussion, during the meeting. Moving on. We'll go into the public hearing portion of the agenda. The first case tonight is 22-002-SUB. This is a continued case. Application from Concrete Products of Londonderry requesting to create a 4-lot subdivision. Property located at 100 Smoke Street, Nottingham, New Hampshire. Identified as map 11, lot 3. And if we can have you just introduce yourself, sir, and give us a quick summary of the changes that you have to present.
Good evening, board. For the record, my name is Henry Boyd with Millennium Engineering, and first of all, I just wanted to say I'm sorry that it took so long to get back here, but since the last time I saw you, I've actually lost 2 loved ones in my family. One of them was my mother-in-law, which we cared for in our home. She had dementia, and it was a nice thing to do, but it wore us out, honestly, so I'm sorry for the emotion, so.
Sorry for your loss.
Your indulgence, and I appreciate the time that you gave us to get back here.
Of course.
So, just to recap briefly, this parcel is about 35.5 acres. We're seeking to subdivide it into 4 acres. I think everybody that was here at the last time recalled that this was a gravel pit, essentially. There is a significant amount of wetland on the site that has been mapped by Mark West. Well, Mark West pretty well. It is bordered by the Little River to the east and obviously on Smoke Street. The last time that we were here, I think there were several items that you wanted us to add to the plan. One being that there has to be intermediate monuments to be set along the property line, so we'll add those, and we're gonna be setting iron rods, typical if you receive approval. The other one was, or one of the other items was that you wanted us to show proposed driveways. We did talk about the fact that these may shift slightly and will be dependent upon exactly where the topography best fits, but we have shown them typical, choosing the locations which seem to make the most sense. So those have been added to sheet 4. One of the other things that the map did show that this parcel is partially in the flood zone, and we had neglected to show that on the plan, so we have added it to sheet 4. But in all honesty, I would like to have my guys add it to sheet 1 as well on the recording sheet. It's not on there in the plan set that you received, so that's one additional item that I'd like to place on there, because I think it's good for a homeowner to see up front. It is only, I think, lot 3 and 4 that would be affected by it. As you can see, the flood map comes this way. And I think the other, and maybe the only remaining item that you had us look at and add to the plan was the regulations talk about either a 200 by a 200 building envelope or a 30,000 square foot building area that we have to have on the parcel somewhere that doesn't exceed the slopes, buildable slopes and everything. So we have added those. The 30K area for lot 1 is here. Lot 2 is beyond the wetland, and lot 3 and 4 as well. We have a 30,000K area here, 30,000 here. So we're not intending to build in those areas, but we didn't see anything in the regulation that said that you had to build within those areas, but they certainly did have to be on the lot as created. We feel that we'd rather build up here. Obviously, one of the things that the client has wanted to do is kind of keep the rest of the site very, very wild, so that all of the construction activity would be here with no need to cross the wetlands. We just think that that's a better alternative. There is some grading that would take place, obviously, to make sure that it makes sense to cut the houses into any slope, so whatever grading needs to take place, so even in those areas right now that may exceed where the houses are, they would be shaped to be able to accommodate that. So I think it's a great subdivision, only 4 lots on this very large piece of land. All of the test pits, all of the building areas, the 4K areas, the wellheads, all are allowed to be in here without impacting any wetlands or buffers at all.
All right, excellent, thank you. And just a reminder for the board, so the prior hearing, the application was accepted as complete, and there was a vote on regional impact. It was voted as not having a regional impact. So we'll bring it back to the, before we bring it back to the board for discussion, Mr. Haney, Mr. RPC, can you just go over your notes from the updated, based on the updated plans?
Yeah, all I did was update the status notes that the board didn't, as you just said, voted to accept it, and it does not raise to a DRI. And then for my comments section, just I had asked if the applicant anticipated driveways and structures that require crossing the wetland, and the applicant's shown where the building areas are. The revised layout plan shows where they are. I did make note that the zoning ordinance states that the 30,000 square foot area is contiguous lot envelope in which a house and septic system shall be placed to meet all existing setbacks ordinances consisting of upland soils. So that's how it was quoted in the zoning ordinance. You know, interpretation is up to the board, but I did want to point that out. And at the last meeting, I didn't say it in the memo, but in the revised memo, but the applicant did say that they have the means and methods to be able to ensure that the standards of the Aquifer Protection District are met. That was stated at the last one. I should have just said that at the end there, but otherwise, that was it.
Thank you. Before we bring it to the board, so just a couple quick questions on the plans. So that interpretation that Mr. Haney just mentioned, that's the way we've interpreted it in the past too. When we have had people go to zoning for variances, if, for example, the 30,000 area isn't the area that's gonna be built in. There was a case on Route 4 where that was the case due to steep slopes. They had the 30,000 square feet, but they were gonna have to cross a lot of steep slopes to get there, so they kept that, but they went to zoning for variance to be able to build outside that envelope. And then you mentioned that on sheet 4 is that the flood setback was shown, or the flood zone plane was shown?
That's correct.
Can you kind of show me where that is or point out?
It actually starts about 3/4 of the way onto the easterly side of lot 4,
Yeah.
and it actually runs up here. You can see what has there. And as I say, Mr. Chairman, I really believe that should be added to sheet 1 as well. And unfortunately, I didn't pick it up until my review this afternoon of the plans. So that should be added also to this sheet.
Yeah, it's on
That would help.
Kinda,
Sorry. Order.
Just kind of that like faint dashed line.
This one?
Yeah,
Zone A,
starts
I see
right
it.
there. Yeah, it's on the right hand side of, and it kind of follows some contours
Okay.
there.
But those 11 by 17s are kind of tough to deal with sometimes. You can't really see what you need to.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll bring it to the board for discussion. Any questions for the applicant from the board? Comments?
It did have that. I think I was the one that brought up the 30K area. Kind of like Blair already stated in his review, generally, and because of the definition, the zoning, that uses the term lot envelope, describing that the 30,000 has to have the house and the septic. That's where I do think those need to be shown or proved out, that the 30K, in this case, if showing the septic and the wells out front, we would have to prove out that the 30K area can be provided in that same area. That's how we've always done in the past. I guess-
Or receive a variance.
Or receive a variance, so, I mean, it's kinda hard to tell, almost looks like lot 3, you might be able to squeeze it in there once you get towards the wetland in the back, and,
It really doesn't fit. I challenged my guys to look at it,
Okay.
and I looked at it myself, and it won't fit.
okay,
The way I interpret that, and I could be wrong, it won't be the first time, but, it would seem to me that it would be a building permit, a variance for building permit, and not necessarily a subdivision. Because we can comply with the regulation.
This is a zoning, right?
Yeah, it's a zoning regulation.
Understood.
So that would be.
a
We have to
variance
go to
from
the zoning
zoning.
board to grant a building permit is, I guess what I'm saying.
To grant a variance from the requirement of having the house on, the house outside the 30K
That's
area.
correct,
Yes,
that's
And,
correct.
and if the back portion was to be utilized for the 30K area, there would be either a conditional use permit or a variance needed to cross the wetlands.
That's right, and I think and I guess my client would have to go to the zoning board to get those houses, building permits up here, but I still think it's better than crossing the wetland. It would be a very nice thing to be able to leave that parcel intact. There's certainly no problem with us going out there if we have to, but it's a lot of expense and it's a lot of impact to that wetland to be able to do that.
I just wanna make a comment to that, because there are several areas that have very poorly drained, and the setbacks on either side are 75 feet, so that's quite a stretch.
That's right. And it's a long ways out there. It would be a tremendous amount of impact.
Yeah,
So I guess my point is, I'm not sure, you may take a different opinion, that we would need a variance before we could subdivide. I guess I disagree with that. I believe that the subdivision would be valid, but they could not build a house out here until they have relief from the zoning ordinance, which specifically says that the house has to be placed in.
Right, it just goes back, I mean, just our very definition of the building envelope being in it with the shall in there, shall be placed, where the house shall be placed, so that's where that ties our hands from the subdivision side of approving something where the house is planned for up front, but the 30K area is beyond it. So we would have to treat the 30K area beyond it for subdivision purposes, and in that case, it still would require either conditional use permits or variances because of the wetlands and the other critical areas that would impact.
So would we withdraw then, or would we continue and go before the zoning board? Is that-
In general, we would go through any other questions and then to try to, make it so you wouldn't have to have a repeat trip. So we'd go through, see if there's
And
anything
you
else
have-
that's
you
identified.
have you have a septic system approval for the 30,000 feet at the back as well?
No, we haven't done test pitting out there, but I'm sure that we could find enough room.
For,
to be able to do it.
because my understanding is for it to be approved for a subdivision, that would have to be there, and then you would get, I would think you'd get the variance to build, you're correct, you'd get a variance to build in a different spot.
Right.
But for the subdivision to be approved, we would need to have the 30,000 square feet with the septic and all of that available, am I correct?
Correct.
yes.
Yep. One other, question I had, and I apologize, I wasn't here for the prior meeting, I had COVID myself, but, so it appears a good chunk of the proposed lot 4 is in the flood hazard area. And I know this is a lot of acreage, but it also has a lot of, a lot of wetlands and a lot of critical areas, a
A
lot
lot
of
of unbuildable.
unbuildable, unfit for building areas, unbuildable areas. There's also in our wetland conservation area, a mention about a 75-foot horizontal setback from any floodplain. So if floodplain is the edge of the zone A, then you're gonna come out 75 feet from that, which is gonna bring you almost to the edge of, the lot line between lot line 3 and 4. So was there any consideration maybe done, I think there'd be a possibility to make this a 3-lot subdivision, which would give you the 30K areas right up front without having to even jump through all the hoops of, testing out the areas in the back.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that that would, it's possible that we could achieve those 30Ks if we get rid of one of the lots, that is possible. I'm not sure, though. I went in there myself after my guys did it, and I wasn't happy with what they had come up with, so I challenged them to look at it again, and we didn't even take that into account. So that's true, if that's the case, that 75 foot would come over here and basically destroy the ability to have a 30K area on lot 4. So
Right.
that-
So I think that would, again, I know it's a larger parcel, but again, it's got a lot of wetlands and a lot of, other things. I think if it was made a 3-lot, it would free you up to kind of shift some of those lot lines and to make it so that you don't even have to get into the 30K areas in the back, or deal with a, zoning variance.
Right.
Let me see. Obviously flood hazard areas, I'm sure you've, through our subdivision regs in 10.4, there's a lot of additional requirements for anything that's in there
Right.
with, federal permits and things. Let me see, my original notes. One other thing, I don't know if they were notified, so the little river, to my knowledge, is a, designated river corridor under New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. This portion, to my knowledge, does not fall under shoreline and water quality protection, but I believe it does still require notification to the local advisory committee. Do we know if that was done?
I don't believe that it was.
The Little River is included.
It is.
It is.
Yeah, but it's not in
Yeah, but it's in
the,
short.
I don't think this,
It's in short.
I asked, yeah, it's in here.
it's a, yeah,
Pawtuckaway River, Little River, and North River.
but I think it's certain portions of it that are,
Require that number.
Ah. Hold on.
if that hasn't been done, I think we would have to continue anyway to make sure we notify them that they get a chance to have comment.
This is, 483:15. Let me see. Number 1, and then :5. Little River as a rural river from immediately downstream of Mendham's Pond Dam in Nottingham to the confluence with the Lamprey River and Lee.
Falls under shoreline protection.
Yeah. Yeah, protected rivers, yeah.
So would,
I guess there'd be some checking on that to make sure if it's, again, I mean, I looked at the state website, but it's an online map to see what's considered a designated river versus where it falls under the SWQPA.
And what is the agency that needs to be notified?
Oh, that's DES, yeah.
Just DES or?
Oh, I'm sorry, that needs to be notified?
Yes.
By the RSA,
Local
it's the
LRA.
local advisory committee, which I believe is the Lamprey River Advisory Committee. Yeah, I'm getting nods of approval.
Do you happen to have an address for them?
We can,
You can get it right online,
Okay.
yeah.
NHDS has a page where it summarizes each of them and gives the contact person and the address.
which hopefully is up to date.
I think they just actually did an update, so hopefully.
I'm just gonna show you the set, rivers designated for protection. Okay.
I'm too far from the salt water, I told you last time I was here, remember? So that has that's a jurisdictional shoreline boundary, there's a 250-foot permitting requirement from that as well.
Yeah, there's the 3 different,
If it does fall within shoreline, but that's something you'd wanna double check and confirm with DES, cause I think it's protected, but I don't think it's protected under shoreline water, because of where it is.
Sure, Mark Westwood now.
Yeah, he would be a
Most
good
likely.
source.
So that was big, I think you addressed most of my other, items that I had written down. I guess those would be my suggestions, would to make it a 3-lot, shift the lot lines so you get your 30K areas up front, and don't even have to worry about,
Everything
the
right,
variance
swamp or
situation or
something.
additional test pits. And that way it avoids that floodplain entirely.
Yeah, because if you're right, that lot is gone. It won't exist, 'cause that's the only possible place that we could have 30K with the seat. Okay,
Yeah, and it would even affect, even at the bottom where the septic could be, because you can't put the septic within 75 feet of that,
Yeah.
the edge of the floodplain.
I do think too, if it was three, those lots is presumably you'd widen the other lots, giving you the ability to do that 30K up front,
right.
if it doesn't fit currently.
It is, as it approaches the back spot, but, I mean,
It was probably close.
sometimes you end up with rules that don't help. Because, for example, in this case, as the chairman said, as you get closer to the wetland area, it does flatten out. And some of the reasons for these extreme slopes is because they remove soil. So that would mean that the house would have to go closer to the wetland boundary than we would want it to as well, which I wouldn't like, but
Is there
you know,
anything-
maybe we can, it is flatter here as well, so maybe we can reconfigure it in a way that we still can get that 30K work. 30,000 square foot is a large area.
And it might also allow for two of those lots to stay possible, that if they stay large enough in size, that people could have, potentially a current use, designation, because it looks like one is 15 acres,
Yeah,
and then the other two are, so.
that's true, they'd have to carve out whatever they're using, but I think you're right, it would be pretty close. They should be able to do that.
Have we as a board ever encountered where, like you mentioned, that, you know, because there were essentially excavation operations, man-made steep slopes, has there ever been, that does count historically as steep slopes, even though,
We haven't. I don't
like,
think
some of
we've-
it is actually just a stockpile, like, there's almost a couple that look like it was a
Yeah.
stockpile material,
And that
it's not
was-
naturally occurring.
That was gonna be one of my next questions, was that does it have to be original grade? I couldn't see anything, and maybe I missed it, but does it say naturally occurring grade? Because if we can grade that down, which is gonna happen anyway, if we can achieve that, that lot 4, I think, is a big issue, I think you're right. But those other areas, for example, on lots 2 and 3, if we can grade that to make that work, we still would prefer the house over here. And as the vice chair said, if you look at this, there's a 10-foot pile, it's just a mound essentially. So if that's not, if it doesn't state that it has to be naturally occurring grade, I would argue that we could show the grading on here to achieve that slope, because it's less than 25%, I think, is right here. It's either 20 or 25%.
Yeah, so I guess that would go back to potentially, so there must, when this was in operation, there must have been a reclamation plan on file with the state, so did it actually get reclaimed, or did it not go through that process?
I'm not sure. I thought there was somebody here at this meeting that was very familiar with this case and thought that they saw a reclamation plan on it.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's in
I think it was,
the larger folder or not, but, because I think that would, usually with the gravel pit's part of the permit with the state for operating a quarry or anything like that is, reclamation plan. We have it in our zoning regs too, but I don't know that we ever had, some of these predated that, and I think it's been remiss for us to get a reclamation plan on file afterwards. But if, speaking out of turn here, without going back through, if that's not naturally occurring, and that was part of just put there because of the operations that were there, I would have thought that reclamation would have been bringing that back to grade.
I will look for that plan, but what would be your position on that? If we were to show a grading plan out here that would because that's what they're gonna do, they're gonna grade those slopes to make it look like a livable area anyway. Would this board take that position, if that's a way to achieve that?
So this is the lot that had an excavation production and alcohol happening, okay, now I remember it.
Yeah.
Thank you, I just was remembering back and now
So again, you're speaking about proposed lot 3, and that, the, kind of the,
Well, it'd be 2 and 3 because, we show a 200 by 200 lot out here, and that's another way to achieve that, is a 200 by 200, which is probably more feasible, especially if we're reconfiguring this by making it wider. But my point is, for example, if you look at on lot 3 of sheet 4,
Yeah,
there's a mound right there.
right.
So that automatically excludes your ability to have a flat space or a relatively flat space. There's a good chance that that's gonna be graded down anyway, so if this was graded to look more natural, let's say actually somebody comes here, I think that that's a legitimate and a good way to do it, because we're still back to, they could go out here if they wanted to, and I really don't want that. I was on the Conservation Commission in Seabrook for a number of years, but I found that I had to step down on every case. So every time I'm involved with these things, I'm trying to still act as a conservation commissioner, which is hard. And to see that, it's very wild now because it's gone back to the trees have grown in and everything. It would just be a shame for anybody to get beyond that.
Yeah, I would think that if you can find something that shows that that was a part of the operations,
Yeah.
that's what was stockpiled there, then grading that wouldn't be a concern of mine. If it was part of the natural topography, it's ledge, that kind of stuff, then that's a different story, but if it's just happened to be the operations and it hadn't been
Right.
graded back yet,
Okay.
Yeah, there's just enough, I mean, right now, based on this map, there's enough 25% slopes that it breaks up that whole, all the front areas, really, because there's areas where they just have cuts, right? There's cut areas and fill areas with stockpiles, so,
Yeah,
I mean, I wonder, I haven't had to look up historical topography in a while, but, there might be even something with the state GIS based on historical topography, or if you can find the files from that original plan, if it shows, to Ed's point, I guess what the natural grades were, and if it was more gentle, and then it's just been man-altered, then I would argue that it's, doesn't really qualify as a 25% slope if it was just natural man-made stockpiles and waste areas.
right. And I've worked with Mark quite a bit on historical aerial images, and he might be able to do something with that.
I would think the state, if there had been a permit pulled to do the
There's a
original
file.
quarry work, there would be a file that they have,
Right.
and that department should be able to give some information on. Again, and they would be the ones that would have a reclamation plan, if there was, again, if they pulled a permit for it and everything else, it would have had a reclamation plan, it should have had original, survey kind of information too.
I guess what I'm hearing though is that if we do understand that that was part of the gravel operation, and we plan on regrading that, we wouldn't have an issue with using proposed topography to achieve 30,000 square foot area of the 200 by 200 blocks.
Can I ask a question? Mr. Boyd, you said that the area has now been completely forested again?
Oh, no, I was out there the other day and you look and you can't even really see it from the road, anything, because the trees have grown up.
Okay, but
Yeah.
so, I'm gonna ask a question, which as an environmentalist you'll appreciate. That mound there that was possibly made as part of the excavation, would you suspect there might be any turtle activity? If it's a sand pile?
That's probably a question better asked to Mark, because I know he does a lot of stuff
That would
with
be
with
good.
turtles. But my guess would be no. I've worked on the periphery of turtles, so I'm not gonna tell you something that I know that I don't, but based on the extreme topography over here, I would have a hard time believing that they would choose this as a nesting area so far away when it also is so steep. That bank from the top of the slope, essentially,
see.
where it does level down there, is extreme. So I would have to say no, but I wouldn't, I'm not gonna tell you no for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think asking Mark would be,
Yeah,
would, please me that you've done so.
and I just have to keep going back to the fact that I just think it would be a shame to do anything else.
I agree.
And that's why I think, you know, if this does reduce to a 3-lot, because that 4th lot looks like it's in question, if we could essentially come to a agreement that, based on what records you can find, that the topography we're seeing here is essentially man-made, I think we could argue that it historically was not steep slopes, which means you then don't need to break up, you don't, once you hit 25%, you can't count that in that 30,000. Then that might help you between 3 lots, get the 30,000 up front, cause I think 2 of them are close, just looking at the setbacks.
But as it is now.
Yeah, I think you're really close now, so I think, yeah, if it went down to 3 and then just confirming maybe some records on the reclamation, we could prove those aren't really historically steep slopes, which is, I think, what our regulation is going after, is naturally occurring steep slopes that have been there for centuries, so.
I think that's exactly what it's intending to do. So I guess we need to be continued again, to do some things. I gotta talk to my client, obviously, I'm not the boss, so, what he has to say.
Yeah, I think the state should be able to be pretty quick with a response to you, you know, which will guide you a lot faster than trying to dig it up.
And to your point, there is the GIS that I believe shows you those sections that are, require permitting.
Mr. Boyd, I have one more comment to make. I'm familiar with this parcel. The Conservation Commission with volunteers water tests, the little river right at this, area where it goes underneath. And we were asked years ago to please go in and see if you see any invasive species by the owner. And so, Mrs. Abrams and I went back into the forest, and it is gorgeous out there.
Yeah.
And we had written a letter to the owner saying, if you ever consider protecting it with a conservation easement, you'll know where to come. But it is, I have to say, it's a beautiful area out back.
I went through there, then I took a right, I had to come to Raymond, and I brought my wife out through here, and then further down on Smoke Street on the other side, there's a wet area out there, and we saw some wood ducks out there.
Yeah, yeah, very pretty.
And this is a public hearing, so I'll open the public meeting for anybody that'd like to speak for, against, or has questions on the application, and invite you to come forward. Take a chance. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. We'll, obviously keep it open if the case continues. We can reopen it, but, all right. Any further comments or questions by the board? No. Did you have any other questions for us, Mr. Boyd?
No, I did wanna say, we don't do a lot of work in Nottingham, and, my guys, actually, my other office had started working on this, so it wasn't until like late through it, I started to see how, well done your regulations were. They're pretty extensive, even more so than in the coastal communities that we work in. We work primarily, you know, from Seabrook to Portsmouth, and up to maybe, we do a lot of work in Exeter and Epping and stuff, but here, it just, they were really well done, so.
Appreciate that. We've had a lot of really good people and assistants, on this board over the years, so we appreciate that. So obviously we have to continue to a date and time certain. We want to give you enough time, but not push you off so much that it delays you, so we can do, our next meeting or go a month from here.
Yeah, I think we need more than 2 weeks, to be honest.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Cause you have to get us materials within a week, so.
Usually a week before that, so.
Sometimes we're getting stuff from the state archives,
Yeah.
those agencies.
So what I would propose, unless you prefer otherwise, with that, we continue to say the first meeting in May, unless we have a lot of stuff on our agenda. And then if you needed more time, you could just email to the land use clerk and say, and request a continuation to, you know, another date and time certain.
Yeah, what is that date? Yeah, and usually, I know maybe a lot of developers and engineers aren't concerned about it, but there aren't really any butters here, so it usually bothers me if we have to keep putting them on.
Yep.
But since there aren't any, I don't feel so bad about that.
So normally we would do, so if we did May 11th, deliverables would be a week prior.
Yeah,
May 4th. All right, would anybody, care to make that motion?
Motion? I'll make a motion that we continue case number 22-002-SUB to the May 11th, 2022 meeting at 7 PM.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries 7-0.
Appreciate your patience.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Give them a minute. All right, the next item on our agenda for tonight is a conceptual review, conceptual application from Kevin Bassett, 101 Shore Drive, for map 70, lot 25, also known as Anchor Drive. Mr. Bassett, come on up, please. You can state your name and again, a quick overview of your application to us.
Kevin Bassett, 101 Shore Drive. I own tax map 70, lot 25, basically the Lambert Road area, just off of Pawtucket Lake. I was in about 3 months ago, and I'm basically just needing some clarification, direction, and guidance on two things, land usage and road definition. I'd like to get those pretty much laying flat before I spend money on a survey. Chris was able to help on the land usage, or at least is offering a solution. And then there's still an outstanding issue is the road definition. And so I'll try to take them up separately. The second page is just a topographical on the location, and I mean, my house property isn't too far from that yellow square. I've been to been in front of the planning board many times. I even come before I even bought the property, just to see what the criteria was and to expose it and such. Got favorable responses. So the third slide here is just, you know, prior to the warrant article, what was I thinking of? I got 3 kids. This is my parting gift to them, and I was gonna keep a 12-acre lot for myself and, you know, for current use, you know, purposes and such. So that's what land 3, the slide 3 is all about. That was my original concept. So now with the warrant article, slide 4, there are essentially in the dark blue, breaks up once a 12-acre lot, because now with the town roads, into possible 3 separate lots. So my question is, can I still claim those lots and as current use? And Chris seemed to think so. It's not a hard criteria from my perspective. If you say no, then I'm probably forced to sell them individually rather than keeping them all in one. And they may get sold individually after I go, and who knows after that. But that was my first question. And so he came up with, they're all greater than 2, 3 or 4 thereabouts that make up 12. And so that's what Chris suggested, and that's what I'm just posing to you. I don't think there's any decision necessary at this point, but it would be nice to know whether going forward, if I presented a subdivision, something similar to this, if that I could take them and put them into current use. It's obviously a financial situation and such, so. Just a little bit on the property. It's mostly upland. There's the yellow-brown area just has a little seasonal brook through it. Behind Dolph Dam, which is on the bottom in the middle, that is a spot where it's wetland. When it comes off the dam, it spreads out. There's a wetland little area down there. So that's just but all the green, the blue, and and the yellow-brown stripe is, and even the top of the yellow is upland, you know, kind of land. So, just the next page is just an alternative. And the difference is the little blue section down below might be a little 2-acre lot. That may or may not be possible. It's right up next to the river and such, but it's just another option that, as I was playing around, how do I manipulate the land and how would I subdivide? So that's sort of a TBD after I survey. So the crux of what I need some guidance on tonight is the last one, and that's where the roads end. Now that they're roads, I used to own them, so I knew where they were, but now I don't know where they were. Obviously, I know where they are physically, but I don't know where they end. And my surveyor does not know where they end. So what I'd like to suggest, or get some guidance, is if Chris and Sean or whoever come out and put a stake in the ground at the end of all these little spurs. The green is lamprey, the blue is Indian, the other one doesn't have a name. Chris implied that it would have a new name someday. And, you know, where do they end? So that one survey can be properly done and I don't have to redo it. Everyone can shake their head for financial consideration. That's why I'm here, is to get a little bit of definition before I spend money. So the suggestion is, go out there, put a stake, and that's where the road ends. And that's hard. You haven't done it yet because it's hard. So now I'm asking, can we do it?
I appreciate that, and, before we go into discussion, a couple of quick points of interest. This is a conceptual application, it's non-binding for us or the board or the applicant, it's just high-level discussion. Again, as the applicant has mentioned, is an opportunity for people to come before us, in a non-formal way to have these discussions before they invest, in surveys and full applications. One other point of order on this is we saw this originally as a conceptual back at the end of January. In our subdivision regulations, it mentions conceptuals are limited to 60 days, or they have to pay for a full application. In my opinion, based on the uniqueness of this in the warrant article situation, you know, that some leeway is warranted for this. We're not much further outside that, but it's to, again, keep them limited in nature. So, any discussion on that, please speak up.
I certainly think that's a reasonable
And then,
extension.
when the applicant mentioned Chris, that's Chris Sterndale, the town administrator, just for the record, as to who that is. And I know that Mr. Sterndale had sent a letter, I think back in January, trying to clarify the roads. I don't know if this satisfies it based on, it seems, what the town's position is to specifically off Dam, Lamprey Drive in Indian Run, as to where they go and where they end. So I don't know if that kinda, I know it's not a stake in the ground, but it was, like, for example, it mentioned for Lamprey, class 5 from Dolph Dam Road to an endpoint near number 32, the main trunk segment, it's dug toward the lake. So it ends near number 32, and then, from that, then it goes over to near number 22. So it seems on paper, like it makes sense, but in practice it may not.
From my perspective, it was a good start. The word near and such, it's not a GPS stake in the ground where a property stake would be set. And so, if you can define where the end of the road is, then I know that I own beyond that, and a surveyor can use that stake with a GPS coordinate, and I think in the end that helps you, because this survey will help you in some degree to find the roads. No, I'm not gonna survey the road, but it'll define the properties around it, and it's a start of defining the roads, which you don't have.
So I have a question.
But at the end of the road, if you define that with a stake and it gets recorded on a survey, that's a start. That's all. I'm trying to help you as much as you're trying to help me, so.
So my question is, it sounds like you've investigated a lot, and I'm wondering if, since you were saying you previously owned the road, or these roads, or whichever
Before-
ones they are,
Before the warrant article, yeah.
right? So, in your deed, what, is there anything that gives you any clues about these roads?
Well, then historic-
Not to my satisfaction. From the deed does not tell me, it, you know, it goes down here and it splits, you know, it splits 3-4 ways. Where does it end? And I'm not gonna go put that stake there. I can negotiate where that stake goes with the town, but I'm not gonna put a stake there. So
think the
that's not
town-
my doing. The road is no longer mine. The land is mine.
Yeah, I
But-
was gonna say,
but the-
like, yeah.
But it is now a town road, and the town needs to tell me where the end is, from my perspective, because it goes this way. If it goes on one of those spurs, so be it. Then I own the other spurs, or whatever. There's numerous situations where the road goes down and goes.
I have a couple thoughts. So to that point, in terms of the town's ability to set a stake of where it ends, and I think Chris has done a good job, from my understanding, gathering what he can with, you know, trying not to spend too many resources. Obviously, it's a lot of roads he tried to get some records on. The problem is, I think in many cases, I mean, for example, Indian Run, like you said, it just starts to split off, which maybe there's a deed somewhere that describes just a general access, and then people have decided to start taking the path of least resistance and put their driveways. But the problem is, I don't see the town being able to set a stake where they wouldn't, I don't think we would have access to any additional survey records, which would help us establish where the end of, because to your point, like, there's times Lamprey Drive might have for 50 years been to one point, and then based on the development of lots, it just got extended, so I don't know what that time frame is, and I think, you know, I think we've had some discussions in the past that there's a question mark, especially at the ends of all these.
So we
And I
can
don't
go
know
with-
if the town, if we're not gonna have any access to any different survey records or deeds, which is ultimately, in terms of legal rights, that's what you have to look back to, is what's been deeded in the past, and if there's no definition via the deeds, you know, based on some of Chris's, you know, some numbers, there needs to essentially be a proposal, I think, in my mind, and then based on Chris's recommendations, it goes from number blank to blank, and then based on that, proposals now have to meet or show the right-of-way per se. You still own the land, you always will own the land underneath it, but then there's the requirements to show a dedicated right-of-way, essentially an easement on a proposed subdivision plan for what you're looking to do.
mean,
Because if there
that's-
isn't one already, like, if you look at Lamprey, right, that's this, I guess, the longest continual one through most of your property. If there currently is not, a deeded right-of-way with description, you know, bearings and distances, location, which I think we know in some of these, there might be, but the road didn't follow that. We did get some guidance as to if a road fell outside of where there might have been a deeded right-of-way or easement. But all of that would have to be included in a proposed plan showing us, hey, here's the road, and here's the X foot right-of-way, and the road stays as is, there's kind of two options for the width that's provided. I just don't think we're gonna have access to, or the town is going to have access to any additional records that are gonna help us put a stake in the ground, which, to your point, is then going to be surveyed and marked, but like
So you're gonna let me put the stake in the ground, and then come back and negotiate with you, and then you might not like it, and then I spend more money changing it.
Well,
Because
we only,
very simply, my deed says this corner, this corner, this corner, this corner, and a couple of easements.
right,
There is no
and I think that's,
old information on where that road ends.
sure, and I think that's some
Wouldn't
of the
it be just as
frustration.
easy to go out there and negotiate where it ends and get it done with?
And I guess the question is, I don't know if us as a planning board can negotiate
No,
for the
I
town's
understand.
behalf, yeah.
So I suggested Chris or Sean or the right people to go do that, so.
I'd almost say we're getting into select board
Well,
land.
yeah, select board and legal,
Well, that,
and
Yeah, because we don't, this
there's
board
a lot
doesn't.
of,
Understood, I just need your help to facilitate this happening.
Yeah, and it,
If it's, because you really don't want my surveyor going saying, this is where I think the road is. I
it's,
don't think you would ask me to do that.
although I think Ian is on the right track, if you not survey it, but propose XXX to the town, so now the town can, this isn't gonna be a short,
you're the
Well-
first, this is gonna be the first,
Well,
first application, so.
well, then you're welcome for me coming first, because we gotta do it sometime. So,
I
yes,
agree.
I could go out there with a GPS, and I could stake the ground, I could come back and propose that to you.
I think Chris did provide, you provided to the best of his ability what he's gathered, like the limits based on some of the lot numbers or numbers of the homes. I think that's probably the best that I think anybody at the town right now is gonna be able to commit to unless we expended additional resources, which again, I don't think there's a ton of
So
records
if my
for to
survey
find.
comes up and it says, and it's near lot 33 that he defined, you're good with it.
we would, so, any application to us, generally, especially for major subdivisions or anything, goes to the various town departments, which includes the road agent.
Yeah.
Select board sees it, fire chief, police chief.
Sure.
So they would have an opportunity to comment, and we would make sure to seek that comment, to say, okay, this is kind of the direction you gave the applicant, as to where these end, it's seems kind of definitive, but again, once you get out there, I'm sure it's not, it's a little bit nebulous as to, near number 22 at the end point, or near the turnaround. That seems pretty clear, but it may not be when you're actually on some of these roads, so, I think if it was staked out during a survey, that would give them the opportunity to go review it, especially if stakes were left, in place, flagged maybe a different color, to allow them to see it. That way we could get their input. Because again, I don't think there's any way around of surveying, if you're talking about the whole parcel, the entire roads,
Especially
because
where
of the fact
boundary
that Mr. McKinnon
markers, yeah.
pointed out, you end up getting that right of way that has to be dedicated to the town. And everything, so.
Cause I know most of the lots should have some degree of boundary, whether it's old pins or buried pins. Those using what you find on the ground versus, I think, the descriptions that Chris has given in terms of like in that approximate area, it's like, alright, well, say the road ends, but it's not lined up with one of the boundaries, it makes most sense for your,
There are no pins on my property.
around the entire, along
I
the
can-
back of these.
That I can find. I go to each corner, and here, there, some of these corners are obvious, and
So you're
now,
saying like,
I say that 24-8 does have a back corner, because 24-8 is a relatively new property, so there is a pin there, but you go to these other corners,
so there's nothing on the other properties either.
so all those lots along the lake, there's not much in the
they
way
have
of
their,
boundary?
well, they have their own,
Yeah,
but there's
well-
a road in between, which
Correct, but
Which
I
I don't
believe
know
in
if
most
I
of
own
them-
anymore, whether I don't know if it's mine anymore. And I don't know, cause their driveway, their property ends, their driveway ends. There's this little spur, then, for instance, Indian comes down with 3 or 4 spurs. Where does Indian go? Does it go to one of the driveways and not the others? Does it go to all the driveways?
Excellent question.
That's all I'm trying to figure out, so I can give guidance to my surveyor.
But I think, so, to your point, the lots that have been sold off since along the lake, those should have some degree of back boundaries.
Best I know.
And that, you still own the land on the other side of that, so those also serve as the boundaries for your land. So that's where
But is it Indian Run?
Indian Run probably has if anything, it was just lines on paper, and that's to the point that I think, you know, any proposed application for subdivision would have to show what's existing, which there's gonna be a lot of bounds on the back of those, there's a lot of lots. And then via the proposal, you'd say, I'm gonna do a 50-foot right of way or 36, there's two different types that you can propose based on the road width and such. You would propose that width, and then that might need to be monumented as part of the survey, cause you're gonna be breaking out lots, but, yeah, I doubt there's any monumentation for these roadways, because the town was told that they're accepting them as is. So, I think
So, yep, by that definition, Indian Run may come down and go
Well, and
go four different places.
You know, and the town administrator's notes.
I don't know.
Indian Run, it just says to a turnaround is formally maintained as an emergency lane, so I don't know if that's clear when you're out there as to where the turnaround was on Indian Run.
Well, not,
There is a turnaround at the end of Indian Run,
If that's where it, you know, branches into three, or if it's,
but off of that, it goes this way, this way, this way, and this way. Then you have lakefront property that goes beyond that.
according to,
previous road
according-
agent should be, I think you're right, helpful, and, because he's been on these roads for longer than any of us, most of us been in town or, and probably has more information than.
Yeah. There's a little spur, that little brown spot up in 24, which is sort of the end of Lamprey. Chris is implying that Lamprey takes a hard left there and heads towards 23, 22, 21, et cetera. So that's all fine, put the stake in the ground, but what happens to that little spot there?
which little spot are you talking about?
Next to 24 at the top. very
Oh, I
top.
see, going the other way, sort of
Yes.
that, okay.
yeah, it
Yeah,
looks like
so-
he has it going to.
The orange area,
Excuse me?
the short orange that you have on,
The little short orange, yeah. You know, these are very crude pictures, but,
Yeah.
you know, it's sort of a global question. So,
So it looks like he had it going, okay, so it going beyond that, according to the map, or according to his notes, it actually goes to what's listed as number 2, which would
it
be
goes all the way to number
32.
2, I just didn't,
Yeah, and then it comes back, almost upon itself to number, what's shown as map 21, to the edge of that. To the edge between
Correct.
21 and 22.
and then the road stops there, even though it shows it on the tax map. It does not make the loop as it's shown, but
Right, it was
that's
never-
beside the point, but.
Never built.
Right.
So, going back to Eden Run, and where the spurs go, those 3 spurs on your first slide, the road questions, or maybe it's the last slide, I'm sorry, I didn't number them, but, if the turnaround is before those, which it seems like it is, that seems like is where the town is indicating the class 5 part
There,
stops.
yeah.
So it may not go down, continue to 7, 9, 10.
Yeah, the spurs are actually off the circle, off the turnaround, yeah.
Yep.
So, all up, you can see why I'm here, just trying to get guidance before I do a survey. That's gonna be wrong. It's gonna be wrong. I'm accepting that, right, because it's gonna need to be changed, is what I'm trying to say. Because, so I'm just trying to get the right people out there to mitigate that.
Yeah.
So, I could invite Chris, I could invite Sean, and my only other question, who else, if it's a selectman, person or a, delegated person, that way we can at least say, we think it's here. And then the survey can give a GPS, it can go on so there's some, at least initial agreement that then can be agreed upon in the board setting.
And I don't think it'd be anybody from this board that could go out, just because we don't have an application for us. But I think the other people you mentioned would be the appropriate people, the
Okay.
road agent.
So with your permission, I'd like to, get with Chris and try to facilitate that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's the correct course of action. You know,
Very good.
And then he can, you know, incorporate the select board we have a select board representative tonight.
Including John as well.
Did you wanna discuss, so?
I was
did
gonna say,
you-
I wanna
did
go
you-
back to
you
a
had
couple
few
things I wanted to
options.
touch on.
Did you wanna get
Well, the
input on
first-
those, or?
The first issue is can, essentially in this scenario, can 3 lots that, each one individually would be an individual lot, but can 3 of them owned by the same owner be allocated for current use?
You're saying if
And
they were,
Chris
if they were
seemed to
three
think so.
separate, there are 3 separate lots, but quantitatively, they added up to enough land to be current use, could they be in current use?
Yes, and Chris implied that that is possible.
Yeah, it's an assessing question, and I don't know if that was the understanding of it, or if it was, could a lot that happened to be bisected
Yeah.
by a road, so one lot, qualify still for current use? And I think the understanding of that was, that scenario was, I believe, yes, but again, we're not the assessing, so we can't, I don't wanna answer 100%. But the question where multiple lots under common ownership, can those qualify for current use, that I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
but-
some guidance there would,
That would be, the select board now has the assessing duty, so you
okay.
get that from,
Cause
how do I-
we did receive guidance though regarding the bisection of, essentially, in this scenario, there's a historical road that's bisected a property, that as long as historically there's been ownership on both sides of what we're now calling the road, that they can be viewed as one lot, bisected by a road. It's a unique situation. I believe there was some case law relative to that. So that in your scenario, I'm on the option 1 page, I'm looking at that yellowish, the yellowish 12 acre plus. And that looks like one that would be bisected by a roadway. Is
Correct.
that, I believe our initial understanding based on the guidance we've been given is that could be considered one lot, because you're not proposing the bisect, it's there historically.
okay. Chris implied that it would have to be recorded as 2 lots. But one owner could own both lots, and then they could be,
And again, that might be more of an assessing thing, cause assessing is probably gonna wanna look at it as 2 lots.
okay,
But I don't, the deed, I mean, you can write a deed for, could write a deed for both.
Hmm.
But then that brings you back to assessing. Assessing might say they want it to be two.
Sure.
So as a town road, create a border, so it really comes down to.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between proposing land on the other side of a right of way if you back up to it, which we've seen at this board. But if you already own the land on both sides, it'd be a hardship, and essentially if you're being told that that's a hard division now.
yeah.
and then best practices for a board, if there's a subdivision that came before us, proposing lots where they're bisected by a road, that's generally not best practices, where this is historically this way, you're not proposing to put a new road in through it and say it's one lot. You know, that would be something we would have to address, I think, at the time of application. So again, you know, I know your hands are a little bit tied based on what it is at this point.
And to that point too, the land on both sides of the road looks like it obviously exceeds the minimum lot areas that if you were to look at them individually, they could qualify as
Sure.
lot areas.
And that might be one of the arguments for it, like,
Yeah.
you know, for option number 1, you know, if that yellow area was proposed to stay as one lot, but each side met the requirements for, you know, a lot, but you're just keeping it as one, that would be probably one of the arguments for it, is that both sides, yes, they do qualify, so even though the road's there, you know. Cause obviously a lot of times during subdivisions, you have what is there, but then, you know, best practices to what it should be, if it was ideal. And we wanna try to make it cleaner, not worse, I guess would be the best way to say that.
Yeah, I would think it'd be an advantage to the town to have larger lots than a whole bunch of little lots, and even though you combine them to get current use advantages from it, the whole intent was to make 4 big lots, and I've talked to my kids about deeding it, that they would be undividable, and that was my first proposal when I first came here. that's what I would present to them when I sold it to them, so.
Mr. Bassett, how big is this property that you have purchased? Is it?
It's roughly 50 acres.
Oh, 50, because you have 25 on this big piece, so 50. Some of these will just qualify for current use on their own.
And I apologize, you said there's 25?
On this schematic, it doesn't have any colors in it.
Oh, the last one?
Is that a typo?
Oh, no, it's lot 25.
Oh, it's lot,
Oh, it's lot 25.
55 acres
Okay.
according to the text.
Oh, I see, I was misreading it.
Yeah.
Without glasses, my fault. Well, that being said, you know, certainly some of these big pieces would qualify on their own, if you, all you need is 10 acres for current use.
That's,
But
makes
the question is, the one that's bisected by the road.
Can it stay as one? It's-
Oh, I know that, yeah.
So that was my understanding, but I would say before you invest, you know, to just get that clarified again, like if this was to come before us and if it was approved and you have acreage on both sides of a road, but it's one lot, would the town still allow it to qualify for current use? My understanding is yes, or if it's 3 separate lots, that part, I don't know.
fair enough, thank you.
All right, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Don't blame me for being the first.
Somebody had to be.
Maybe it's better to have me do it than someone else.
Moving on, review of new zoning amendment updates for, we kept that in the placeholder, but I don't know that we actually have anything formal.
What was that?
Review of new zoning amendment updates.
So that was just, so those were the amendments I got voted on.
Yeah.
And I put them in the zoning ordinance, and I sent them out to you guys. I didn't print them out.
Yeah, no.
So I didn't know if you guys wanted to discuss it, or if you're just like, that's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Blair, if there's like very minor things, like, I know in the zoning ordinance, I think it's, as you get to the appendices, I think it was like, well, so we've got the town roads listed, you know, private, miscellaneous, whatever. Can we clean those up without going to an amendment?
Just moving like a formerly private into public road?
Yeah. I think so. If it's not
Cause it's not us voting on something, right? It's just updating information.
Yeah.
and it's not a substantive change or anything, so I think that's allowed.
Yeah, it's not typically, the way I've heard it described, like a very hard and fast, is Scrivener's errors are essentially what's allowed to be corrected. But that is not, that's a correction of something that's not even not in your hands, so I guess maybe, yeah. You know.
We can double check before we print out, sign it. So there's that, and I think tax map lot numbers were, I think it was the 911 maps that, map numbers that were used for scenic roads instead of actual town tax map numbers. I found that at one point. So what I'd propose that we do is just confirm that we can correct those non-substantive mistakes and then get it all done and then do it then and make sure it gets published online.
Yeah, if you could get like an updated PDF of everything.
So what do you need from? So,
I'll-
as it stands right now, like, do we need, if it can be just the Scrivener's errors, so to speak, that's fine, then it's good to go and publish, is that what we're saying?
Yeah, and then we just have to sign the page, I think, for the,
It would need to be signed before, okay, so we need to figure that out, so.
so I'd say at the next meeting, bring that page,
And
the
then you
signature
guys can
page for
sign it,
us.
then I can publish it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it.
So isn't the town road in the subdivision, not the zoning?
I was just gonna say, things like that, it's been my experience, just either keep them as separate documents or put them in something that you have more control over, like your subdivision regulations, because if they're gonna change, And if someone tells us that we have to have a vote, then it just seems like it's silly to have things in documents that are gonna change.
So that lives in the subdivision, so we
I could
can
be
do
wrong,
that.
so if that's the case,
Yeah, it's in
then I say we
subdivision.
just,
You know,
yes, so basically, it's just the final process of us signing the amended version of the zoning ordinance based on the town-approved, changes to the warrant articles that we had put forward, so road setback and, building height.
So that's just a matter of you guys signing off on it, so I apologize, should have brought it here. So next meeting, I'll bring.
The signature
a copy
page.
and have you folks sign it.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, so I don't know how they normally incorporate that onto the one online, but maybe it's just for the town
Scan
copy.
and replace.
yeah.
So everyone's fine with the changes, no one has any additional changes or anything like that?
To your point though, should we, I guess, where is this, this looks like an Excel or Microsoft.
For the subdivision regs, that's one where I think we can keep it in mind for when we address, possibly setting up a roadways setback,
Yep.
which is, we should keep on the agenda for, the future.
Yeah, cause you're right, then we can update the private versus town.
So next item was a review of the planning board bylaw updates. I had promised to make some changes and reorganize, and I sent that out. I added some verbiage to committees, cause we had discussed that, so I found some verbiage from another town. Kinda tweaked it to more match our board. And then rearranged the sections so that it's, I think, more of the order. And then get into the actual procedure for a meeting. I don't know if everybody had a chance to see that, I had a couple of small corrections after I sent it to Kevin, and I appreciate him getting it out to everybody, cause I couldn't seem to do it. Rearranging it and renumbering it, I messed up the article numbers, starting at number, 5, I think it's committees, should be number 6, and then continue on from there. And then we just have to choose, we had a section 1, and then we had a proposed new section 1. Kevin, I don't know how hard it is to bring that up if everyone wants to see
You
it.
want to bring it up on this?
If you, if not, don't worry.
Oh, it's on the ground.
Oh, boy.
You can probably just project it on the wall.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it on the wall. Anyone have an issue with that?
We'll try it and see how it goes.
Good luck.
I know, right?
And then, under the conduct of business, under section 2, conflict of interest, we had D and then E. E wasn't truly a standalone, it was kinda like a subset of D, so I moved it, but we just have to fix the paragraph there. So while Kevin's getting that set up for us, not to jump around, but I wanna keep it moving for everybody. I promised to get a draft letter to send to the select board of our recommendations for the New Hampshire DOT 10-year plan that's has a comment period by the end of May. So I sent a draft out to everyone. It's basically short and sweet. It references 2 of our prior correspondences back in 2018 and 2021, requesting that those items continue to be pushed forward. One of those being the bike lanes, or basically widened shoulders on 152, 156. And then it identifies the subjects that are on the current 10-year plan already. And then the new one is our intention, this board, of sending a correspondence to Barrington and, Barrington, Lee, and Northwood, to see if we can get on board to work with Stratford Regional Planning Commission to get to request a corridor study from New Hampshire DOT for Route 4, based on the amount of, increased development that we've seen throughout the communities that utilize that route.
I saw that contact information, I think, came through from the traffic planner from Stratford.
Yeah, he and I spoke about that. I relayed what Charlene had and you guys had talked about, and then he and I were back and forth. I just said, "Can you just just direct to her in case, because there's going to be follow up." So yeah.
Yeah, okay.
comment on that, you know, otherwise I'll sign this and send this off, tonight, and then I'll work to draft something up to get to the, planning boards in Barrington, Lee, and Northwood, to see if they'll also support, if there is some comment that there may be some general support from those towns as well.
Is there a need to add, I know this is kind of started before I was here, but I guess they've been promising, right, the flashing warnings on Route 4 at the 152 intersection?
I was gonna bring
Is
it
that
up.
worthwhile to say that we continue to support the
Yeah, because it was
implementation of
supposed to
the,
have happened, or,
there's supposed to be the warning turning traffic essentially
Yeah.
with a trigger if somebody's sitting at the intersection, it
right,
flashes for Route 4
because
traffic.
it started out with a reconstruction of that intersection, and then it went to, basically DOT saying, yeah, we wanna try this new thing, flashing lights ahead of,
A lot
it,
cheaper than new construction,
you know, so, but then,
it'd almost be like adding,
kinda seems to get lost, and,
well, I think I heard that it was on a plan, it was on a 10-year plan or something like that. It was getting pushed off, so. They become
But is
30-year
that,
plans.
is it in our prerogative, seeing as that is not even Nottingham?
it's a,
The warning sign, though, one of them would fall in Nottingham, because it'd have to be far enough back from the intersection on Route 4 that it most likely would be in Nottingham.
Okay,
Yeah,
both Nottingham and, Northwood.
Within 100 feet of the town line.
Yeah, originally, so the state bought some of the land before that, and I believe the original plan was they were gonna shift the intersection, and it was gonna fall all entirely in North,
Right.
I mean Nottingham at that point, but this was gonna be like the potential quicker, cheaper fix to improve safety there was, yes, those automated warning lights that come on to alert people that, traffic is entering.
Just where that's a cheaper
Well, and that,
project than some of these other,
well, and that came up too, because it was questioned again, you know, and, well, we'll try this.
stuck with the flashing light.
Okay. So I don't know if that would be,
I was just
Separate,
worthwhile
that may
Yeah,
actually-
I don't know if that's,
be in there, or if that might be just something that we, in my comment or my letter to SRPC is asked if they can get an update on that.
And I'm forgetting the rep that handles transportation.
Oh, Colin?
Colin,
Yeah.
yeah, I can ask Colin, I did send him one, comment about something he sent me regarding projects coming up. I think I mentioned that one, so.
So, Mr. Barlow, this is just, so the planning board, under our purview, we're supposed to look at the master plan, everything else is, you know, our community, but then also the state corridors and such. So we know that the 10-year plan is coming up for renewal again, and they're updating it, them being New Hampshire DOT. So we have our pieces of it, and then stuff that we're recommending that the select board, you know, continue to address with whatever else the select board may be addressing with DOT. As part of that, you know, the bridge on 152 and all those fun things. So we'll get that letter off. All right, bylaws.
You want your corrections, right? Or you
We can just show the clean copy. So this is, obviously, we made a bunch of the edits at the meeting. There were minor corrections after that. I don't know if we can find the real logo. I pulled out something and it creates the black around it. I don't know why.
Oh, is that what you?
That was kind of a placeholder just to match up with our other documents.
I'll figure it out.
So, again, so we've kind of shifted some things around to make the articles fall, so if you can just scroll down to, as we go through the articles. So Article 1 now is our authority, we added that section, which made our old Article 1, Article 2. Go ahead and scroll down. Members and vacancies, and then number 3, this is the order that made sense to me, officers and their duties. 4 is how officers are elected. Then to number 5, planning board duties. This next one should be 6 instead of 5 again. Committees, this is the section that we moved and I expanded upon quite a bit. because we didn't talk about subcommittees or SRPC, CIP. So try to, again, make this a document that people could pick it up, read, say, okay, they have a CIP person, SRPC reps, subcommittees, and how are those run? So we had section one, and then what I propose is our new section one.
So this should be 6 though.
It should be 6, yep. And then from there, that would be 7.
I'll go back and,
Yeah, sorry.
yeah, I'll change all that.
Well, menu members, the land use clerk. Other agents of the planning board, this one should be number 9, it's at 10. Meetings and hearings and how they're run.
This one should be number 9, just,
Well, won't those go
Well,
up?
yeah, don't worry about renumbering now, just,
well, it'll just be,
I could be wrong.
You'll just work your way through.
but wait, hold, so this one is number 8, right? So you were saying this one should be 9, but
No,
we just,
no, the one that says 8 should be 9.
that's my point,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
I'm
Oh,
saying, the numbers are wrong,
Gotcha.
so sorry, so that's my fault.
So wait a minute, so let me just, so this is gonna be 9,
That should be IX,
and then this 10 is correct,
yes.
you see what I'm saying?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just run through the article headers and make sure the numbers,
Yeah, I get it, just make sure they line up, right, gotcha.
yeah.
Once you get down to conduct of business, this is the other section I was trying to say, it just needs a tweak. Under conflict of interest, it was A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's how the alphabet works. But,
Hold on.
sorry, yeah, I know, let's take notes. So D and E, the way E read, it wasn't a standalone thing. It was nebulous by itself, so really, it should have been part of D or a sub-bullet of D. So if you can see D there, Kevin, yeah, a little further down, where it says, if any, that first sentence, the end of that first sentence, it says board. So pending before the board,
This right here?
period.
Yeah, what
And then that's supposed to be number 1, and that'd be like a
So
sub.
a period after board, yes,
Yes.
Correct.
and then this is a whole new, this is gonna be D now?
Where it is D.
It is D.
Oh,
What I was saying is, this could be a
A subset of D.
section of D,
Of
or
D,
just a
got it.
continued sentence
got
of
it.
a
So
continued paragraph.
move E into D.
So then.
We did already.
Something
Okay.
along those lines.
Yeah, it's just to clean up the.
And that would be
bullet.
number 1, yeah.
And
That's where that 1 came from. It's when I did the edits that for some reason it lost it when it,
Yeah, the format can be a little bit funky when you start really getting. I feel like this document's kind of been worked on for years,
It loses,
and I feel like it's not up to date to what, so I may at some point, just go through and go through the whole thing.
you almost have to sometimes start with a fresh document, get it all in there, and then format it all at once, and it's a pain in the ass.
and that's it. So the only substantive thing was fixing that part, and then going back up to committees, adding more verbiage in there as to what our committees are, how they're organized, and then choosing section 1 or new section 1, which I proposed, new section 1, that talks about SRPC
Yeah.
and just cleans it up.
I think there's a couple of places where there might be like extra spaces or like no spaces, like gaps, so you,
Well, the good thing with Word is that it finds that for you.
oh, really? Good.
Yeah, so I actually went through the document, and it'll give you like two little blue underlines or anything like that, or where it should be a capital or things like
Okay.
that. So I usually go through and just like, if it's grammatical, I don't need you guys to be like, yeah, okay. You know, I kind of like cleaned it up a little bit.
And all the other edits we talked about, select board, land use clerk, correct title, as opposed to the other things we had in there, so.
We just need to get that final document and then
You're
sign.
okay, I really can't see it.
Yeah, so what I would propose, even though we probably don't need a motion, I would just suggest we make a motion to, approved as amended, and then you would just remove that section 1 versus new section 1, leave new section 1, and
So change the numbering, and then just kind of clean up that section that I just indexed,
yeah, and where we have section 5,
which is now it's gonna be
Committees.
6.
yeah.
Yeah, all
Where
the
it says-
numbering.
And
Where it says section 1,
Lines up.
which is old section 1, or new section 1, we'd get rid of section 1, and get rid of the word new, and make that section 1. You can go to it, I'll show it.
Scroll up to 5.
so
Go back to committees.
For the committees, which is the section 5.
Yes,
Or 6.
currently.
There you go, stop.
So
So, see how there's section 1,
yeah.
new section 1.
Oh, I see.
We'd get
So-
rid of section 1 and make new section 1, section
So
1.
get rid of this right here.
Happy conduct of
Get rid of that
Get rid of that whole paragraph.
Oh, whole paragraph, got it.
I'll just look over your shoulder.
And these are editable at any time, so if the board, if we find that we accidentally got rid of something or want to add additional stuff, we can address these at any of our meetings in vote in new bylaws at any time.
So we should-
I have one more comment. Sorry, that's what I'm good for. Under conduct of business, Article 11, I can't see what's up there.
I added
Did you add that?
Yep.
Okay, never mind.
She, Ms. Mooney was asking on reports from planning board agents, advisors, I added board members, just to make sure that it's clear that that's when we kind of do
Okay, thank you.
our, I think that can always fall under other business, but it's good to just have that be our, you know, pretty clear. I added board members
Oh, you
under
added something, okay.
section 1C there.
Yeah.
Reports from planning board agents was there, advisors was there, I added board members.
So you think it makes sense to have a motion for her to, accept as amended? And then do we need to just sign a sheet tonight?
Yep.
Okay. I'll make,
We can have that, we can-
yeah, so we have one we can sign, so, I'll make a motion that we accept the, planning board bylaws as amended.
Second that.
A motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries 7-0. I don't know if we can, actually, the argument was quite wrong.
Oh, that's true.
So at the next meeting, we'll have, the sheet to sign for that, that'll be, the correct numbers on it, and then the sheet for the.
We'll wait to make sure the
zoning ordinance.
article number is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then should I change the amended date?
I was just saying, we just voted on it, so it probably makes sense.
Change it to tonight.
Today?
Yep. Yeah, again, that was kind of a placeholder, make sure we didn't lose it. Okay, moving on. Public comment, this is the time of night where we always, keep time for any member of the public to come in to ask us questions, bring up concerns, if it's specific about projects, applications, or properties, we may not be able to answer. So we invite and encourage people to come on in and learn more. There's no one here tonight. We'll move on to the approval of minutes. We have two sets, a set for March 16th, 2022, and a set for March 23rd, 2022.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the minutes of March 16th, 2022, and March 23rd, 2022.
We have a motion by Ms. Mooney, any, a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Anderson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries, 7-0. And, select board, staff board member updates, we'll just go around the room. I'll start with, Mr. Haney, SRPC, we'll work around this way.
I apologize for showing up a little late, I'll be a little more mindful of that. Otherwise, no, there really isn't anything at the moment. We're heading in, Jen reminds us we're getting close to our budget season, so, that'll start to pop up. But ultimately, the organization is continuing to move forward, and, if you do need anything, let me know. But, no, nothing specific. Night.
I apologize for showing up. And then I forgot my glasses. Couldn't see anything, still learning.
Okay, it happens.
Yeah.
I have two quick things. We have welcomed another member to the Conservation Commission, a young lady, Dallas Huggins, and she is an amphibian supporter, and she has, with the blessings from the Conservation Commission, gone out and gotten temporary signage for people to put up on roads where amphibians are most likely to swim across the road on a dark, warm night when it's rainy, and then pick up the signs the next day. And the signs basically say, save a life, don't drive tonight, or something like that, so you're not squishing amphibians. And also, we've scheduled, the Trails Committee has scheduled a spring cleanup of the public trails on Marsh Woods and the Kennard Forest. So, we've been
What date is
busy.
that?
We have a cleanup
No,
scheduled.
date.
What date?
Do a date.
Oh, the date, yeah. Did you want to volunteer for that?
I might.
Okay,
That's separate from, isn't our town cleanup day?
that's separate from the
Saturday?
town, yes.
Birthdays,
Yes.
The first session is on Earth Day, which is, April 22nd, it's a Friday, and that's 10 to 2. And the rain date or continuing date, if we need it, will be that Sunday on the 24th.
I think I might be away, but I'll get in touch, okay?
Well, I can give you contact
You'll
information.
see me before then anyway, so,
For the Trails Committee people.
yeah.
Okay,
Thank you for.
very good, thank you.
Thank you all for organizing that, doing that for the town. Speaking about big night, my wife and I tend to go out every year when it's gonna rain and be that first warm night of spring, and just to see what little creatures live around us, cause it's a night where you kinda see things you don't generally get to.
It's pretty magical. It
Within an
really
hour, I
is.
think we moved.
Yeah.
It was cold, so it was like in the forties, but 70 peepers, number of salamanders, and I moved one large yellow spotted salamander.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
Probably
yeah.
20 years old, so.
Yeah, mole
Pretty
salamanders.
neat.
Yeah.
For me, I don't have anything, well, actually, I'll bring it up to the board in case it sparks anybody else's memory. The building inspector had asked me if I have any memory about why on our building permits, we have different criteria for certain items. There's, this site disturbance of, I think it was like, say, 5 to 20,000 square feet requires a stormwater permit, and then 25 to 35,000 square feet, a different permit. Those numbers don't match up to any of our zoning ordinance or subdivision regs or site plan regs. They don't seem to match up to any, state item or federal permit until you get into the higher numbers. We don't have a stormwater permit in town, so the only
Yeah,
thing I
only
could think of is
30.
that it came from a possible ordinance that we might have brought in, update for either minimal lot disturbance or one of those that we didn't end up moving forward with, and it somehow got incorporated onto the building permit, but does anybody else have?
Yeah, isn't the only regulation that if it's 30,000 more disturbance, we require a stormwater analysis or grading drainage plan? It's the only thing I think. we
Stormwater
have, right?
management plan,
Yeah.
yep, and that's in our regs, and there's state and federal requirements about, you know,
Odd range numbers
50,000,
too.
yeah.
Boy, I don't remember updating the building permit.
No, we wouldn't have updated the permit. Normally it would come from something from zoning, you know, they would pull data from that to make the building permit, but I couldn't find anything. So before I responded to the building inspector that I don't have anything to support those numbers,
Unless it was
he was
Mr.
basically
Cole.
just reaching out to us before they changed the permit application.
Yeah, his main concern was it said stormwater permit,
Right.
so it sounds like there's a permit.
Yeah. And some municipalities have that, and it's municipality specific, you know, based on,
Well, yes,
Sounds to me like somebody pulled that permit from another town,
Yeah.
and set it in ours.
that would be my guess. Okay. Tax day coming up. That's all I've got.
Nothing for me.
The Board of Selectmen have dealt with some personnel issues. Obviously, I'm not gonna go into detail about it, however, the highway director will have a contract going forward. His employment. And we've discussed and planning for the preparation of the E911. Probably gonna be, case in point, Lamprey Road and all that, there's gonna be some changes on some of these newly accepted roads as far as, you know, these spurs may be spun off as separate roads, with different names and so on to make it more, friendly towards the first responders. And obviously the dispatchers that accept these, phone calls know exactly where the call is coming from, things of that nature. You know, we're preparing, for, when the fire department, gets their, 3 personnel coming in December. We're still struggling with, finding help, which it's, across the board. You know, it's not just Nottingham. You know, all the surrounding towns are feeling the labor shortages and all that, so, I mean, we have openings in the fire, police, highway department. In this, labor market, it's been tough. So hopefully, as time goes on and, you know, I'm hoping that we will find some quality candidates to fulfill these positions. But I like to think we'll remain optimistic. There's been some changes at the recycling center fees. Other than that, and that's pretty much, it
Does
for me.
E911 get released and that's it, or is it like a how does a,
Well, we have to look at these roads first, and then, you know, we have a list of, road names, if you can believe that, qualified, approved names for new roads, which was new to me. And then,
sounds similar to other roads?
Well, yeah, we did that, so, we did that a few years ago, we recommended that a list get done, so it'd make it easier on.
yeah, so,
And
you know,
also-
basically, you know, that's gonna be a long process. I mean, E911 probably won't be instituted for this town. You know, we're hope this year, but chances are probably early next year. We gotta
There's
figure
gonna be a
out
lot of
these others.
pushback, yeah.
Yeah, we gotta figure out primarily the newly accepted roads. That's where, you know, as you heard Mr. Bassett earlier, these little spurs, and, you know, Barberry comes to mind too with, their spurs as well. Getting those, you know, figured out, you know, renumbered, cause that's gonna happen too, once you get a new, they're giving a new. And then my question is, you know, once, you know, these spurs have been renamed and renumbered, are they still qualified as town accepted roads? I'm told yes, but that could be something different, another legal question, but,
Yeah, it's interesting, cause then, yeah, going forward, it's gonna be like, well, that's not actually that road anymore.
well, that too, but well, the reason I say that is that Dolph Dam is a prime example where, you know, for years, we didn't maintain a certain part of it, once you got to that bend that goes up to Lamprey, now we go all the way in. So, I mean, these are all questions that, you know, we're told yes, but, you know, I gotta.
Never as
fill in
easy
that.
as it seems, yeah.
So that's my update.
Yeah, excellent, appreciate it. And obviously, I apologize, I didn't say at the beginning of the meeting, welcome to, you've been part of the board before, but welcome back as, the ex officio rep.
Thank you.
You know, if you all, at some point, at one of your meetings, wanna designate your alternate in case you can't make it, I think that's only your purview.
Yeah.
We can't designate an alternate for you, so.
Understood.
But
I
again,
do
yes,
know
welcome.
that, I'm not here for the entire season, not sure if that was aware. So we broke it up, each board member will take 4 months. So I'll take the first 4 months, because this board is the one that's the most active out of, with the exception of budget, during the budget season, but,
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are all year. So sometimes there's scheduling conflicts and so on, so I know I had some later in the year. So we all decided we'll take the 4-month chunks and then go from there, so.
Yep.
You know, you have me for the first 4 months, and then, you'll have to look at the website of who's next.
That's good.
That was a good way to do it, I thought, a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mentioned, Colin had reached out, well, sent something out about the 10-year plan and different transportation stuff, so I'll follow up again with him and give him some of the stuff that I'm sending to the selectmen as well, so just can't hurt to do that. And the, one more note I had is just that the 300th committee will be doing a charter reading, May 15th, that's a Sunday, in the square at noon. And I'm hearing, well, could be some, I know there's invitations out there to people like the governor and senators, but we'll see who accepts. Could be, I think, interesting good thing to hear, the reading of the charter and some of the history of the town.
And when is this and where is this?
In the square, Sunday, May 15th.
I didn't realize someone had posted that, so General Dearborn, Dearborn, Michigan was named after that General Dearborn that came from Nottingham. And
Was that
I was
right?
born in Dearborn, Michigan, so.
Really?
I didn't realize there was that connection, so it's just interesting that I ended up
Wow.
here, so. Exactly, yes. Mr. Davies?
Thanks for letting me get back on the board. And, other than that, I Nothing new to add.
Again, yeah, we appreciate you being here and really appreciate your patience as we, figure that out. We'll make sure the year gets recorded in the minutes, that the paper gets recorded with the town clerk and, that it gets on the website too, so we have that for the future. Ms. Jones?
On the budget committee, a name of a vacancy was left off the ballot. And that is creating an issue, it has created, I think we have it resolved now, but I'm saying that to us is that we need to be checking who is and how, and aware of that before the ballot is printed. Because if people became aware of the problem, but they didn't become aware of the problem until after the ballot was printed. And so we came into a session with a vacancy, but it wasn't a normal vacancy, like somebody resigned, or it was a vacant, and we had to go all the way to the Secretary of the State to get permission to go vote and replace the person. So it's taken up quite a bit of issue, and I'm just bringing it up here because we don't want to have it happen anyplace else to any other committees.
I agree.
Are you part of the budget too?
Yes, I am.
That was my question, yeah.
Yeah, so are you, do you know whether it's gonna be, public or non-public voting?
It's going to be a public meeting, but there will be no further discussion. We had a lot of discussion at last meeting, and we took public comment at last meeting, and there was a lot of public comment. And in the end, Mary Bonzer came forward with a statement that was different from what we had researched. So John Decker and Michelle decided that they would get an opinion in writing. And then we would go forward, and I assume that they have an opinion in writing that we can go forward with a vote, because the email I got today was that there will be a vote on Thursday. And she said, we expect it will be a very short meeting, as we have had, and at the last meeting, we did say there will be no further discussion. We're just gonna vote. So I'm sure there will be folks there that will want to have some discussion, but we've heard all that.
Okay.
But that we don't need to be doing that here.
Now, I know it wasn't that long ago, that you had some issues filling some slots, but then like the last hour or so, not recently, but a few years ago. I don't know, sure if you remember, they were talking about eliminating positions, like one or two positions from the planning board because they weren't able to fulfill them, but last second you were able to, the board was able to fill them. Has that been an issue since?
No, I don't remember. So, I mean, the number of members we have is set by the RSA, I believe, but, finding people to fill in for, we have representatives, alternates is always difficult. Thankfully, we've had Mr. Davies for a number of years. It's difficult to get, like other boards, you'll notice down participation or, alternates to join in. And then sometimes subcommittees can be a little bit of a challenge, because we usually have a CIP representative, which we've named Ms. Jones for when that picks up, because obviously she has the budget part, so it seemed like it made a lot of sense. Mr. Anderson and Ms. Anderson are SRPC representatives. I'm sure I'm missing something, but, so they, so far, yeah, we've been doing okay, and I don't think there's been any further discussion on that.
Board since I've joined.
Yeah.
No, I'm amazed and, just that, this board is stacked. I mean,
Yep.
past, a few years back, not anything recent, they were struggling with full positions.
Yeah, no, so we've been, knock on wood, we have some new blood this year, from an alternate and, a member, but, I think we have a pretty varied background as well, which I think adds a lot of strength to the board and to the town, and for applicants and residents, that, brings a lot to the table, no pun intended. Jim, you?
So the only thing I have is, we don't really have anything, hearing perspective for next meeting. The only thing right now, it looks like it's just bylaws and zoning amendments. So that's basically signing those, so want to have a meeting just for that, or do we wanna?
Yeah, and I don't think we're in a position, I don't think we're prepared to do any updates, like a work session kind of thing, where we address road setbacks and things for the subdivision regs, and clean up. So I'd put it to the will of the board, but
I'll be out of the state that week anyways.
I think if there's no cases before us this early in the year.
We passed the submission deadline, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if we don't have any
We're
cases.
coming up on the May right now, and I have there's some fearless people reaching out to me, but aside from concrete, we know that'll be continued to the 11th unless it's off. So we know it'll at least be here for the 11th
Sure.
of May.
Yep.
But right now, as far as April goes, we don't, this was even later, that was a continuation, and it's gone as fast before as well, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit later time of year.
Yeah,
So it's up to you.
Take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, my recommendation that we cancel the 4/27, meeting. We don't technically need a motion, but I'll take one just to make it.
I'll make a motion that we, cancel / not hold the April 27th, 2022 planning board meeting.
I second.
That's a motion by Mr. McGinnon and a second by Ms. Jones. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Carry 7-0, so our next meeting will be May 11th. Blair, I guess, at some point, I'd like to just work with you just to try to see if we can get some verbiage for, roadway setbacks to add to subdivision regs, so we get that done before we lose sight of it.
It'd be nice to find a light meeting in the
then-
mid part of the year to
Yeah.
do that, cause we don't, instead of wait until fall.
Right, and then push it into that, so,
Yeah, agreed.
okay. Okay, if nothing further, motion to adjourn would be appropriate.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Thank you, everybody, I appreciate your time tonight.
you.